I think the market in 25, is very different than when we bought a company in 23. And I think that, timing, opportunity, and growth prospects really necessitates, and luckily we have a very patient PE, majority owner, really necessitated looking at, hey, we need to expand the timeline here. We need another 2, 3, probably year, strategy.
Welcome to Triangle Tweener Talks, a weekly podcast by builders for builders where we explore the startup journey from the idea to the exit and all the lessons in between with an exclusive focus on founders from the Triangle region of North Carolina. Now here's your host, serial founder and general partner of the Triangle Tweener Fund, Scott Wingo.
First, a huge thank you to our gold sponsors. Today's Tweener Talks is sponsored by EisnerAmper. As one of the world's largest business consulting firms, EisnerAmper brings specialized industry knowledge to the tech sector with tailored solutions in accounting, tax, advisory, and outsourcing. Explore how our technology practice can drive your company forward with stage-specific solutions. We'd also like to recognize our silver sponsors. Today, we are featuring Automated Consulting Group. Ready to transform your business with AI? Automated Consulting Group delivers executive workshops, fractional CAIO guidance, and custom AI solutions built for your business. Finally, thank you to our sponsor, Extensis HR. So that founders can focus on innovation for over 25 years, Extensis HR has leveraged a people-first approach, customer-centric mindset, and deep industry expertise to ensure employers have the tools they need to stay competitive in today's market. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for supporting Triangle Tweener Talks and the entire Triangle startup community. It takes an ecosystem to build a thriving community, and sponsors like these are very valuable, and they contribute their time and also help sponsor things like the Triangle Tweener Talks and Triangle Tweener Times. Thank you. Welcome back to Triangle Tweener Talks. This is part 2 of our conversation with Brice Englert, founder of TradePending. Way back in part 1, Brice walked us through his background from engineering and M&A to auto tech to taking the leap into building TradePending, including some early pivots, rejection, and why being second to market wasn't a disadvantage. In this episode, we're going to get into the details of how he built and scaled TradePending. We're going to talk about pricing, sales strategy / go-to-market, and how TradePending reached profitability early on, and how Brice thought about expanding the product surface area to grow TAM over time. We'll also dig into his decision to take on a majority private equity partner, what that experience has been like, and what he's up to next. If you want to hear real stories from real founders about how they grow product and think about these things, you came to the right place. Here's part 2 of our conversation with Brice Englert. Okay, so, and this is 2014 is when you started. So we're kind of like 11 years ago. Yeah.
My lead engineer came in September of 2014. Funny story there. We met each other on Craigslist. I actually posted the position on Craigslist after using some recruiting resources and this and that. Literally, I don't recommend that today, probably, but he answered
an 11-year ago thing.
He answered an ad on Craigslist. So come September, I had worked with a company, Cognitect, in Durham, and we did an I0 engagement, which was the cheapest thing that I could find to kind of help, get, just wireframes and, concepts. But it was a really actually inspirational team. And lead engineer came in, incredibly talented, full stack senior engineer. He's been in the ecosystem around, the Triangle for a long time. And I remember, we sat down for about 5 hours. He had a stack of sticky notes that he put on the wall. It was kind of our first Trello board of requirements. We had a functional solution in about 90 days, and our first commercial install was in January of 2015. So a very, very short incubation period.
Let's talk about the business model. So is this so I'm a dealer and I put this on my site. Do you charge me a SaaS fee for that? Like, is it a piece of software and I can all you can eat, or is it going to be you put it on for free and now you're going to charge me per transaction?
Pure SaaS.
I'm sure the consumer piece was per lead gen or something. It was like a lead gen model.
That marketplace concept, was kind of a per transaction. I think we actually monetized one transaction, which funny enough was me selling my car.
I'll get the marketplace going. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I had one card still. Yeah.
It didn't fly, but no, the first product for TradePending was very simple. SaaS, month to month contracts, no setup fees. Which is not what investors want. In the end, for a B2B SaaS company, but for the market, it really lowered barriers. 100% of our buyers could switch, tomorrow. And frankly, I like the challenge because it keeps you on your toes. You have to provide value. You have to create a good experience for your customer, or they will turn you off, tomorrow.
How did you figure out pricing? Because you had some competitors, right? So if there's competitors out there and you're better, one option is you can be the expense of the Cadillac, to use the car analogy, or you can try underpricing them, or you can change the model. Which and there's probably something I haven't thought of. What was your approach there?
So it's so important, and at the time, we had competitors in at $150 a month, $299 a month, and you could do the math on 17,000 franchise dealers and say that can't sustain anything. So we did come in at a premium pricing, inspiring to be, close to the $500 a month mark. And I will say, those early decisions for any of your listeners, period, we just went. We just said, hey, we can do this. We could sell it. And we just started, hitting the street and hopefully crossed our fingers because we didn't even know, does this pencil out each month? Does the production we can create for the dealership, create a simple ROI equation that they're getting, in the end, they get 100x return, on that investment, given the sourcing of leads. So pricing, super important. We weren't very good at it. We just said if we go below $400, we're going to go broke. If we go above $500, we're going to get too many no's. So let's stay around there.
And I think that's an important lesson. This is another thing a lot of MBA types way overthink, in my estimation.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So because they've taken all these classes on it, they're like, this is my jam. I'm going to run a Black-Scholes and a Monte Carlo and all these things. And I'm like, just like, all you need to do is like put your finger in there, sell stuff, like price it low. Like you can always raise your prices. You can always go down. Like you can change prices. You got to get the demand going, and then you get these data points like, wow, I can't believe I'm paying you so little, because some customer will actually tell you that, and I'm making so much money off this, and then you start to figure out, well, how do I start tying it to the value delivered? But that's like a year 4, 5, 6 decision. Like when you've got hundreds, if not thousands of customers, you can really start to then optimize.
I treated it like, well, therefore we have to be really good at sales. We have to invest in sales. I had a single engineer for the first, well, I had kind of two. One was part-time, backup, managing a different project on data collection. But our lead engineer, was solo for 30 months, while we were just investing in sales and distribution and how we can deploy super easy. There's tons of stories around that. But the price point, dictated the fact that we need to be ready for high volume.
I like spending time on this foundational stuff because it kind of helps us understand, like, where you started, and now take us through the progression of the company. So, and I promised I'd get you out. We have like 9 more minutes left, so I promised I'd get you out here. So, what are some of the big? So, we're in 2014. You've put a lot of thought. A lot more than I actually do. I'm just like, this is interesting. I'll start something. So to your credit, you put a lot of thought into this. You've got a business plan. You've got a 2-pronged attack. You've thought through your pricing. What are some of the big milestones?
We broke even cash flow in month 14, and that was with 3.5-ish employees. So from there we could continue to double down on sales reps, and at the time we were breaking even on a good sales rep in about 10 weeks. So probably didn't pay enough, but it was clearly we had market fit.
The sales reps are going to dealers.
Sales reps are knocking on doors. Outside sales team, tough job. A lot of windshield time, a lot of no's, but it's transactional sale. And we distilled our demo down to 20 minutes. We would deploy. I think our quickest deployment, we had a dealer click a contract, and before the sales rep was out the door, they had a lead come through their website with our solution. Talk about making the customer happy. We really honed all that. It was very disciplined on just making sure that foundation sustained the business. And then we launched our second product 3 years later in 2017. We built an API into our valuation methodology, which was really smart because we had other players in the automotive industry using our values. So I can tell you what your 2019 4Runner is worth. They put powered by TradePending, wherever we could. And so dealers started seeing us everywhere. We launched our second dealer facing product in 2019. I guess it was 2018. We called Superlatives. Nobody could pronounce it, but it was the best product I think that I've ever thought of. It was a merchandising product where we would take our data and put good facts on the vehicle you were searching for, Scott. So if you're shopping for that new Tacoma, whatever it is, very quick mover, we would actually badge up the data. We'd say, hey, there's only this is one of three within 100 miles for sale today. So creating some urgency. And frankly, we could merchandise a car based on data better than most sales reps could. Certainly used cars. They didn't have necessarily that deep of product awareness, versus new. So that got us to, 2020, called about a $12 million run rate. Probably too much, margin. It could have been a really nice, just mailbox business, but I had 35 people that were eager for growth. And so we went to market in the fall of 2020, looking for kind of, what would be out there for the next stage of growth for TradePending.
You had your initial 2014 funding and then self-funded it for 6 years, and then got to 12 million and decided to kind of go get what I would call so usually there's a fork in the road right around there, which is either a growth round, which would be a investor that does a minority amount, or a private equity, which would be, sometimes they'll start as a minority, but they're very clear they want to get to majority. So did you look at both those options, or did you?
I had a great investment bank with a lot of vertical experience. They understood automotive tech. I'd seen their deals and actually slowly built a relationship with them for probably 12 months. And I did want to see, kind of the full spectrum. So they ran a process, very disciplined. We ended up having a lot of LOIs. It was just such a good profile, and it was a healthy market. But for me, the most attractive opportunity for me personally, as well as for the company, was a majority transaction with a PE firm based out of Houston that had a very good model of kind of creating a platform investment, TradePending, and doing some add-on opportunities to play to our strengths, which we're going to be, distribution and continued innovation. So we chose to go that route, which came with, benefits as well as challenges. When you give up majority, it's a different world altogether. But I thought it was the right path for us.
So when you do majority deal, there's several flavors of those. One of them is you do 51 to 60, 70%, and then the founder rolls over a large chunk. And the idea is you can get this double exit. So now you've brought in this big partner, you get you take some money off the table, which is good for you and the other team that has options and stuff. And then you get to roll the dice on, all right, these guys have big pockets. They're going to put, presumably, almost as much as they bought your piece for into the company usually. And then that's going to supercharge it. And then you'll have an even bigger exit. So that's one path that people go down. And then another one is they kind of say, I'm going to lose control of this thing because they're going to be the majority shareholder. That makes me very nervous. I want to get totally out. And then usually that's more where the CEO may do a transition. The founder does a transition year. And then sometimes they'll stay on. I've seen all kinds of different disconnects between ownership and staying on. Which of those paths did you choose to go down?
It was the former there. I'm sorry. The first one. I did not want to leave. My corporate background put me in a position where I know a lot of founders. They're just surprised when they start working with a board. I felt I could, not only tolerate that, but kind of thrive in collaborating and building a company that, frankly, that was bigger than anything that I'd ever run. So stayed on, no contract at all. No earnout. I rolled a large chunk of equity because I believed in the story, and stayed in the seat for 4.5 years, which probably puts me on the top 10% of founders who stayed, perhaps.
you already were running pretty lean. So one of the things that usually chafes most founders is this firm will come in and just start cutting costs and stuff and like really kind of squeezing stuff out. But it sounds like, and a lot of it's picking the right partner too. And you're, with your corporate background, you're probably pretty sophisticated at this, but, there are PE firms that want to really grow and they'll actually, increase the burn and they'll kind of like have a trajectory where they'll kind of say, all right, we're going to take this, maybe not negative, but we're going to reduce it down and then really accelerate it. Was rule of 40 a thing then?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, we were rule of 80 plus, and had great cash flow. In this firm, who I did a lot of diligence on, that's one advice I'd give to anyone: go talk to the CEOs that have sold, who've stayed on. Go talk to the CEOs who didn't stay on. And when we sold to 35 people, I didn't even have a controller or CFO. We had built a lot of systems, and I was running payroll. So there was nowhere to cut at all, Scott. It was full investment. And they did help us scale up our sales team. I think we went from probably 15 to 35 salespeople. Tried different models, outside, inside. Helped. In the end, we could take more risk. And that resulted in sustained growth, as well as then. We launched a couple more products organically, as well as buying 3 companies over the last 4 years to make a bigger TradePending offering for our dealer customers.
So 2020 was good timing. You, in hindsight, you picked I don't know if the top was 2020 or 21, but you were in the strike zone there. You're right there. So congrats on that. That was smart. So tell us what's happened. Give us kind of like, bring us up to speed, and let's kind of. I want to go back to the founding thing too and tie it together. But
I think the market in 25, is very different than when we bought a company in 23. And I think that timing, opportunity, and growth prospects really necessitates. And luckily, we have a very patient PE, majority owner. Really necessitated looking at, hey, we need to expand the timeline here. We need another 2, 3, probably year, strategy. And frankly, that was going to be better suited, with the next guy, who I've been working really closely with. I found some inspiration points into kind of, my next startup thing. And I wasn't going to focus on it while I was CEOing and, hoping to build. So, it was a good, easy transition, I think, for me to be able to step aside this fall, and been able to focus on some other things to, gear up for a big 2026 launch and the next thing.
Give us what's the scale of the company now? What can you tell us about?
So TradePending, topped off probably 150 employees. Run rates, in close to 50 million plus. One thing I did want to add, by the way, for any of your folks, when we did the deal with our PE firm, I was very aware of the amount of leverage being put on the business, and we were very under leveraged, which was just, once again, a risk mitigation for me. We could take some risks with our partner, be wrong, and not have to have silly things like going back and refinancing debt or other functions like that. So I think that's one thing that most entrepreneurs don't understand. When they sell and they think they want to stay on, is how much leverage is actually being applied to the business. What does that mean from a free cash flow perspective? So we were always in the clear and remained in that. But hit good scale. 3 acquisitions. Most people, I think I heard you say, all acquisitions fail. Our batting average is really good, actually. I couldn't tell you it's
not all. The majority do.
We had a pretty simple approach for add-on acquisitions, and I think some of my experience hopefully helped that. Give me a product that has market fit, 400 customers, 500 customers. They've gotten there with 2 salespeople. I've got 25. We can do better. We can expand that. There are some integration, benefits, inject my data into their solution that makes it even better, and so much more. So I think we were in a position where we could take, that small cap kind of growth, area, and create a good mid market story.
Cool. So you're still on the board, and you're thinking of, are you fully, thinking about your next thing? Are you building another treehouse, or what's going on?
I've been building tree houses now. His life is, we took some time with the wife, went to Italy for a couple of weeks. That was brilliant, and took advantage of just having a little bit of free time and chasing the kids and doing things, for ourselves was pretty fun. And I think I had my business coach, a great guy, John Fallberg. I don't know if you know him, Scott, but he's old time kind of Triangle Angel Partners investor, and more plugged into me. And he said, Brice, you got to take 6 months, take a breath, so on and so forth. And I found myself about 6 weeks in, and I'm just starting to create. But what I'm having fun with, to be frank, is the tools to be able to develop my business plan, a financial model, and research. 10 years ago, I've done most of that with AI tools in literally hours. So I feel so prepared. And not having the time to really invest in researching these tools and things like that in the last couple of years, I feel like I've been able to kind of excitingly catch up on how to be more efficient, with all the modern things that are at our availability today.
Have you gotten into vibe coding yet? You could remember how you had to do wireframes and all back then. The vibe coding tools are amazing at just giving you a quick, real live prototype of whatever you're envisioning. It's pretty wild.
So I play tennis with a guy who's vibe coded our next solution, and we get together, and it's great. He doesn't know anything about the industry, but I give him a little sheet. He's over there vibe code. He's a product manager too. He's not he's not an engineer. But we just had a meeting actually yesterday. We were talking about just how crazy it is to wireframe. Let's just go build it. Is this good? You like it? No? Okay, get rid of it.
Cool. So when can we let's leave people with a tease. When are you going to reveal what you're up to?
It's probably first quarter, late first quarter. I am in search for that lead engineer. I'm trying to enjoy the networking piece, which I'm kind of average. And, I'm trying to tag folks that I know, like Scott Wingo, to see if they've got a network of talented engineers that want an opportunity of a lifetime. So, I'm having fun, with the research portion. Talk to dealer friends of mine, validate the idea and the problem we're trying to solve. But no, we're full on, kind of in search for that first engineer.
All right. So one hint is it's in the auto tech space again, it sounds like, or at least
it is 100%. I couldn't leave the automotive sector. I love it too much, Scott.
That's a bit of a scoop. So you heard it here first, folks. Brice is working on number 2. So that's awesome. So it's great to see you doubling down, staying in the Triangle, I assume. Looks like You're still in Chapel Hill there. So it'll be great. We'll check in with you in a couple of years on the pod and hear about the new company and everything that's going on. And I'd be a terrible general partner of Triangle Tweener Fund if I didn't say we would write. If you raise money, we would like to write a check. So I will go ahead and explicitly state that on the record.
I think we're going to do this second one a little bit different, than we did the first one, as I'm sure you've done every one of your iterations. But I look forward to talking more.
Well, thanks for coming on. Well, one story to kind of close the loop. So a lot of times I have found I have this idea for a TAM, and then as I build the company, I'm like, that was ridiculously small. Like what, if you look back at that, I think you said $100 million TAM, you're already at 50. What do you think about that $100 million TAM, and what did you get wrong?
So I think that for me, I'm so product focused. The only reason we've gotten to 50 is because we've layered additional product life cycles. So we're playing in the monster TAM now in the billions of dollars, given the breadth of solutions that TradePending has. And a lot of times, I think you may see it, with your fund, it's people. I'm a realist, I guess. I don't like looking at, mega TAMs and this and that. And I recognize that, hey, if I can achieve $1,000 a month times this many customers, and there's a universe of that, in some ways, I generally underestimate my TAM because it's a risk mitigation factor, But, it's a company. And if we do our job and we're going to innovate, I can tell you in year 3, the TAM is going to be expanded because of idea A, B, and C. But as an investor, are you really interested in hearing about what I'm going to do year 3? Or are you more interested in hearing about how I'm going to survive year 1? It's a little bit of a catch-22 there, right, Scott? Yeah.
There's like a VC TAM. So the reality of the world is there's a VC TAM, which is like, this is $100 billion opportunity, which is useless. It's not tactically useless at all, and it's just BS, right? And then there's a founder TAM, and for me, I didn't understand the TAM thing until I realized it's a go-to-market exercise, and it's like, okay, there's this many dealers. I can sell them 500 a month. I think I can get this market share. That gives me a TAM here. How many can I service? Well, I'm not going to service one in Korea for quite a while. So they're not in my serviceable, but they're part of the TAM, and ultimately I'll get to. But then, the reality is, then your job as a founder, let's say it comes out with a small number, 50 or $100 million. That's great. Go get that. And then as you go, get customers, listen to them, and they will tell you how to expand your TAM. The customer will almost like demand you to expand the TAM. They'll be like, this data you have is amazing. Can I use it here? Can I use it there? Could you give customers this? And then suddenly each one of these new things you're doing, like you said, you've crawled your way up to billions of dollars of TAM. So the TAM is also not static. That's the other thing to remember. And it's your job as a founder to think through, when should I expand TAM? And don't do that when you get to 1 million. That's the other mistake people make. They're like, I'm at 1 million. I'm going to go international and
I got 1% of the market. I want to go international. No, don't.
Yeah. You get 10% of the market somewhere where you're starting to get a material amount of a market, and you're starting to feel like, I've kind of burned through half the people in North America here. I'm either going to have to go international or do some TAM expansion. You should wait a bit longer. But yeah, so that's another big lesson that I think is good takeaway from your story, how you build. Awesome. Well, Brice, really appreciate it. I enjoyed hearing your full story, and it'll be great to see you out and about the community. We'll have to drag you out of Chapel Hill and get you to some, maybe at least over to RTP for a get-together and meet some other founders and stuff.
I would enjoy it. I've got more time in my hands than driving around knocking on doors for dealers 10 years ago. So I look forward to getting more involved in the startup community here.
Awesome. So thanks for coming on, and good luck with your new company. Excited to see what it is.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Triangle Tweener Talks is hosted by Scott Wingo, presented and produced by Triangle Tweener Fund, with creative assets and design support from our friends at Walk West. That's it for today's episode. A big thank you to our guests, sponsors, and the team that makes this podcast possible. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves the startup stories coming out of the Triangle. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time on Triangle Tweener Talks.